Morning. We begin the new parak, Hamutzi Yayin. The parak is going to continue with the amounts of food or drink that somebody needs to be carrying in order for them to transgress carrying in a public domain. Somebody carries from a Rishus Yachid to Rishus Rabbim, a private domain to a public domain, or vice versa, or within a public domain for Amos. So there is a minimum requisite that would have to count, they'd have to be doing in order to count as carrying. So what is that minimum requisite? What is that amount? So we saw yesterday in the Mishnah that there was a klal that whatever someone is worthy of saving, and it's an amount that is saving, that people would save, then there's that's the minimum amount. So it has to be an item that typically is saved, or the amount that is typically saved. And we saw that for somebody who saves things themselves, even if it's less than that, or even if it's an item that typically wouldn't be saved, for them that would count as something that was carried, of substance, of significance, because for them it is. And we saw Rabbi Shimon Elazar says that even for someone else it is, because it's theirs and they keep it. And today we're going to see an opinion of Rabbi Shimon who says no, even for people that save things and consider it important for themselves, there's also a minimum. But the Mishnah, the Chachamim, they say no, that this in-between point, that it has to have a minimum in general, but for the person that saves it, for them, even without that minimum, since they keep it and they save it, so for them it's of substance.
In Dinner Muksa, so like if somebody had, like a Wedgwood teacup and it had a tiny little chip out of it, so they wouldn't throw that away. But Rothschild would probably look and say, it's damaged, and he'd toss it away. Give me another Wedgwood teacup. So does that come into it here? I mean, is it ever individual? What a person starving would not throw out, a person who's had a big meal would.
Yeah, that's an important point I mentioned in passing yesterday, that there's a distinction between something that has already been kept versus something that in theory they would keep, and a distinction between somebody who is wealthy versus somebody who is not. But that's Tues' distinction between Rashi. Rashi in the previous Mishnah said that anything they would keep, and in this Mishnah said anything that he already kept. So the question is, why the distinction? And Tues says that it depends on whether they are wealthy or not, meaning something that most people would keep, but they wouldn't. So then they have to already have kept it. But once it was in their possession, so then it would be an item of significance. So the Gemara, the Mishnah now says like this: Hamutzi Yayin. Somebody brings out wine, enough to dilute. As we know, their wine, and this is true for all the wines of that period, Roman wines, Greek wines. You see the wine in Eretz Yisrael and in Bavel, they would dilute it. It was not really something that could be used. It could be drunk alone. It was just not proper. So they would always dilute it 3 parts water to 1 part wine. So if you take out enough wine that you could dilute into a good cup, that's what Gemara is going to explain, that would be significant amount of wine, and if you carry that, you're chayiv. Chalav, milk, kedei gemia, enough for a swallow, which we say is about half of that. It's a cheekful. Dvash, honey, which probably means nectar, as we know that it usually was date honey or nectar when the Mishnah and Pasuk talks about honey, not bee honey. So kedei litin ala kas is enough to put on the wound. There are significant medicinal components in pure honey, in bee honey, and so that would tell me that maybe we're talking about bee honey. So enough to put on a wound. Shemen kedei lasachei v'katan, oil enough that you can put oil on a small limb, and we'll see later whether it's talking about a child or not. Mayim kedei lashuf ben esakilor, water enough to rub the spices, the medicines on the eye. Shakala mashkim, all other liquids beravias in the revias. And even liquids that you wouldn't want, that are really for throwing out, such as drain water, also are going to be by revias. Gemara later is going to talk about what value does it have. Why is somebody keeping that? We just said that it has to be something that you would keep. Rabbi Shimon, however, Rabbi Shimon says, Kulan beravias, all of these things are really revias. And even these minimums that we're talking about are only for people that keep them. But people that wouldn't keep them, like rich people or people that are in our situation, in our world where we throw things out, so that would not be according to Rabbi Shimon, that these would not be the minimums. The minimums would be something that you would keep, and the measure of which you would keep. Satana kedei mezikas hakos yafe. The Brisa says enough wine that when we said wine enough that you could dilute, it has to be enough for a nice cup. My kos yafe. What does that mean? Kosher bracha, enough to make a bracha on. We know that for kiddush and for the bracha of benching, where you need to have a cup. A cup of wine, that requires a revius. And so this would be a quarter of a revius. A revius is a revius alug, a quarter of the lug, and this would be a quarter of that because you can dilute it 3 times water and 1 time wine. Rav Nachman said in the name of Rabbi Ravua that benching requires a revius. And therefore you need a quarter of a revius of wine in order that you have enough wine that you can dilute it 3 parts water to 1 part wine, and then you would have a well mixed drink, a well mixed wine, so that it's appropriate for benching. Amar Rava, so Rava says, Afanan Namitanina. We also learned this. Now we're on 77a, Ein Zayin Amud Aleph. Tanina, we also learned like that in our Mishnah. It seems to say that because it says Amitzi Yain Kedei Mezikas Hakos. In our Mishnah, it says somebody brings a cup, wine, enough to bring a cup, enough to dilute into a cup. But Tani Allah, and we learn about that Kedei Mezikas Kos Yafe, that it means a nice cup. Iktani Sefer, and if you look at the end of the Mishnah, Meshakal Mashka Revius, all other drinks require a revius for carrying. So we would assume that wine also would require enough for revius. So that even though that it's a quarter revius of wine that you're carrying, but that equals a revius when you dilute it. And this makes sense because Rava says the Amar Rava kol chamra deledori alchat las maya lav chamra. As Rava would say, any wine that you haven't diluted for every part wine, 3 parts water, it's not wine. It's not a respectable, honorable wine. In order to if it's not diluted 3 parts to 1, water to wine. I have 2 questions of that. Number 1, in regards to the colors of blood of Nida, which the Gemara says that there are 5 colors of blood that would be Nida, and all others are not Tamei Nida. And one of them is when the color of Shiron wine, the wine of Shironi wine, that is diluted 2 parts water to 1 part wine. So you see that there's such a thing as 2-part dilution, not just 3-part. water, 3-part water to wine. There's a 2-part water to wine. And besides, in our Mishnah, it says that liquids would require a revius. You're carrying 25% of that because it's going to be diluted later with water. But the water's in the jug. You have water in the jug and you're chayiv for carrying. You've transgressed carrying because you carried a quarter of that, the quarter that needs to be diluted with the water in the jug. You didn't carry the water in the jug. If you had carried already diluted wine in the measure of revius, fine. That would be that you carried the requisite amount. But over here, you're carrying less than the requisite amount. So Rava responds. Amalei Rava. So Rava says, Adika Amris, Shnechal Kamayim Echad Yayin Min Yayin Ashironi. This that we said, that the color of wine diluted 2 parts to 1 of the Shironi wine, and this is a region, and so he says, yes, that's true. Yain Ashironi Lechud, the Rapi, that's only Shironi wine, because it in and of itself is already softer and not as concentrated, and so you only have to dilute it twice, not 3 times, meaning 2 parts, not 3 parts. Inami, or perhaps or perhaps even the Shironi wine needs 3 parts water to 1 part wine in order to drink it, but we're looking at color, and for color, the color we're looking for is a 2-part dilution, and that'll give you the color that we're looking for in the blood. And it could be that once it's diluted 3 parts water, it's already lighter, and that color would indeed not be Tami Nida. But indeed, for drinking, you always need 3. Even Shironi wine requires a 3-part water to 1 part wine. So, and your question, the other question that you said, Abai, was, wait, the water is not being carried. Why are you holding him responsible for something that isn't even in his jug? It's not even in. He's not carrying this. The water's in the jug. It's not in what he's carrying. He's carrying just a little bit of wine, and it's not yet diluted, so he doesn't have a revius. Why are you holding him responsible for that? It says what we're looking for here in the Mishnah, in the requisite amounts, is what's the basis? The basis is this is a matter of significance. This is a substance of significance, an amount of significance. Well, that's fine. It doesn't make a difference whether it actually is a revius. It just has to be that this is chashiv, it's significant. And when you carry that much wine that can make a glass of wine, that's a significant amount. And this too, this quarter revius, which could be diluted into a revius, that is a significant amount of wine. Tana yavesh bekazayis. The Brisa says that dried up wine, it's a kazayis is going to be the measure. Divrei Rabbi Nassan. That's what Rabbi Nassan says. It's interesting. Our wine obviously wouldn't dry up into a hard substance, but syrups could. Again, this indicates their wine before it was diluted was a very thick syrupy substance, and could dilute into and could dry out into a hard substance. So yavesh bekazayis divrei Rabbi Nassan. So Rabbi Nassan says the measure would be 1 kazayis. Amar Rabbi Yosef. So Rabbi Yosef said this statement of Rabbi Nassan, who says that in order to carry the requisite amount of carrying in order to bring a chatas offering for carrying would be an olive size of dried wine. Similar, this statement of Rabbi Nassan is similar to Rabbi Yosef Rabbi Yehuda said something like that. So Rabbi Nassan, Rabbi Yosef, Rabbi Yehuda, Amr Davayachad, it's all one concept. Rabbi Nassan Ad Amram, this statement of Rabbi Nassan. Rabbi Yosef, Rabbi Yehuda, the Tanya, Rabbi Yosef, Rabbi Yehuda, Omer, as we learned, Rabbi Yosef, Rabbi Yehuda said, Shisha Dvarim Mikula B'Shamay Mechumra V'Yisilim. we know that when the academy moved to Kerem B'Yavne, the Chachamim gathered and started testifying halachos and rulings that they had seen, and to begin the collection of the teachings again. And there was a list of leniencies that Beis Shammai had over Beis Hillel that Rabbi Yosef Bar Yehuda testified about. He said, "Shisha devarim mikula Beis Shammai u'mechumra Beis Hillel." These 6 things are of the leniencies of Beis Shammai and the stringencies of Beis Hillel, even though there were more, but these were the ones that he was testifying about. He said, dam nevela, blood of a nevela. And we know that nevela as food can cause tumah. There's tumah of carrying, there's tumah of eating beis habliya. So he says the blood of nevela. What about the blood of nevela? So Beis Shammai matarim. Beis Shammai says that it's not food. It's not the part of the meat. So it's not going to be tamei in the olive size of the meat, and it's not a liquid that'll be tamei. Rashi says could be that it would have the tumah of a liquid, and he's only talking about the food here. But not the tumah of the liquid. Either way. But the point is, it's not, even though that it's a part of the nevela, it's not going to have the tumah according to Beis Shammai. Beis Hillel matamim, but Beis Hillel say no, it does have tumah. Amar Rabbi Yosef Rabbi Yehuda, and to that Rabbi Yosef Rabbi Yehuda, who says, he testifies, Af keshetamu Beis Hillel lav loitamu ela b'dam sheyesh b'revius. Beis Hillel were only referring to blood that will be tamei if it had enough blood that if it were to dry and become food, not a liquid, if it became food, it would dry up into the size of an olive size, which is a revius of wine, a quarter of a lug of wine, of blood, would, when it dried up, would become an olive size of edible, halachically prohibited, but edible food. And so we see that he too is saying that the tumah would apply in the liquid form on that which is a kazayas in the solid form. And so we see a kazayas and a revius is the equivalent. Maybe it's not comparable. Maybe Rav Nassan only said over here that the wine would equal a revius of wine equals an olive size. That's the boy revius. That we need a revius. In the kolish wine, which is a much thinner substance than blood. Avol dam, but in blood, the samich, which is a thicker substance, kazayis. That would that this olive size would not need a full quarter lug revius in the liquid. In other words, less liquid would equal would equal a revius. Essentially, when the liquid dries, it loses some of the water, and it'll diminish, and could be blood, which is thicker, would not diminish down to an olive size from a revius. So in order to get an olive size, it could be even less than a revius we'll get there. Inami, or perhaps the other way around, not kind of like Amar Rabbi Yisrael Yehuda Hasam, the Kazayas Sagi Leber revius, that maybe only in blood would a revius be significant enough to get you to an olive size. Avo bedam, elabadam, the samech, because blood is thicker. Avo b'yai in the kolish, but wine, which is thinner and has more water, so more water would evaporate. Kazayas ave yosim revius, that in order to get to an olive size, you would need more than a revius of wine. V'chimapik, pachas mekazayas lichayev, and therefore, even if you carried less than an olive size, you would transgress because you just have to transfer a revius to a dry substance. Essentially, the concept remains the same. that by us, in order to carry, you need a revius dried, or the requisite amount, which is a revius of water, a revius of wine, dried into a solid. And when you carry that amount, then you will have carried a revius and transgress on Shabbos. Rabbi Nassan said that equals an olive size, and by blood, Rabbi Yosef Rabbi Yehuda says it equals an olive size. However, Rava said that these are comparable opinions. Abaye says no. It could be that they would not agree to each other because one's talking about a thinner substance, one's talking about a thicker substance, and maybe they each hold that the other substance requires more or less based on its density. The Mishnah used for swallowing chalav kedei gemia, milk enough that one would swallow, and we know that the ayin in Hebrew and Aramaic is similar, and we say it exactly the same as the aleph sound. It's a guttural sound, an open throat, but it's slightly different. If one can say it correctly, it's slightly different. So we're going to have a whole bunch of words that the Gemara is going to ask us whether it's with an aleph or an ayin, the pronunciation. So, ibaylu kedei gemia or kedei gemio. This that we said in enough to swallow, is it with an aleph or with an ayin? Amar Nachman says, look at the pasuk. If the pasuk says, Hagmi'ini namat mai mikadech, let me swallow some of your water from your jug. And there it's with an aleph. So we see the word is with an aleph. In Bailu, we ask further. Now we turn to Ayin Zayin Amud Beis. Gar'inin or gar'inin, seeds that we learned earlier in the Mishnah. Are we talking about an aleph? Is it spelled with an aleph or an ayin? Amar Rava Bar Ula. Ula said, "V'nigra me'erkecha." We see that the word giraon, v'nigra, means to diminish that which is less, or that which is that can be returned. So sort of like a returned deposit. So too, over here, the seeds are what you don't keep and you give back or you toss. So we see that it's with an ayin. We saw the halacha about coals that are dying or diminishing, and those are called omamos. Are they with an aleph or an ayin? Cedars that were not blackened in the garden of Hashem. So it was, and over there the meaning is that they were not diminished in their value and their color in the way they they look in the rest of the garden of Hashem. So we see that omamu with an ayin means diminishing. Ibailu, the Gemara asks a question: Ma'amtzin tanan or ma'amtzin tanan? We'll see this later. That when somebody passes away, you can close their eyes on Shabbos. So closing the eyes of someone who has passed away, whether you can close it or not on Shabbos, is that with an aleph or an ayin? It says in the pasuk in Shayo, the otzim einov mer'elos bara, somebody who closes his eyes from seeing bad, seeing evil. So that's with an ayin. So we see that the word ma'amtzin is with an ayin. Amotzi chalav shel behema kedei gemia. Now back to the halacha of the Mishnah. Somebody carries milk, and we're talking about animal milk, right? So cow's milk, goat's milk. Amotzi chalav shel behema, somebody who carries animal milk, kedei gemia, that's enough to swallow. What about chalav shalisha? What about a woman's milk, a mother's milk? V'leben shel beitza, or egg yolk. Egg whites. So there, it's kedei liting b'meshifa shel kilor and kilor kedei lashav b'mayim. It's enough to put on a bandage to rub on the eye or on a wound. And how much is a kilor? Kedei lashav b'mayim. And a kilor, these spices for the wound, in this potion, would be enough that you could mix it with water. So that's the amount that you would put. The amount of breast milk, mother's milk, that you would put on this gauze that would go on the eye for a wound or an infection in the eye, and that's the amount that would be for carrying. By Rav Ashi kedei shifa, kedei achiza v'shifa, is it enough to that you would just pour on this gauze or directly to the eye, or is it enough that you can hold the gauze plus that you would pour on it? Teku, we don't know how much that is. Yeah, is it for both, or just is it enough that it would be in your hand enough to hold on and that? So we're talking about minuscule amounts, but it's nevertheless a question of how much it would take. Teku. Dvashka de litin ala kasis, and honey or nectar enough to put on a wound. Tana kedei litin al pikasis. So the Brisa says enough to put on the lesion of this wound. Where Ravashi al kasis apuma, the kula kasis. No, we're talking about the opening of the wound, which is the lesion. Adilma amursha kama the kasis, or is it only on the place where the pus is coming out? And not all the redness that's around it, which is a part of the swelling. There, you don't have to put it on. Well, you have to put it on, but you don't need enough to put on to even that in order to transgress. In other words, how much of this honey that are we talking about? Enough to fill the entire wound, or only the opening of the lesion? Teku. We don't have an answer for that. Aram Yehuda Amarav Kol Ma Shabara Kadosh Baruch Hu B'Lamar Lebara Davar Echad Lebara Davar Echad Levatala. Everything that Hashem created in the world has a purpose and a usefulness, and nothing's for naught. Bara Shavlu Lekasis. There's a slug or snail for a wound. Bara Zavuv Letzira, for the bite of let's say wasp, a type of flying creature. So flies are a remedy for that. Yitush Lanachash, and a mosquito for a snake wound, and Menachash L'Chafafis, and snakes are a healing for a type of shchin, for a type of boils. V'samamis la'akrev, and a spider, that's a good remedy for a scorpion bite. Heichi, what do you do? Bring a black spider and a white spider. Mishakila, and you cook it up. Mishayfile, and you rub it in. Sounds like a fun thing to try with the kids. I like all of the remedies that we saw last week and beforehand. Don't try these at home. Tara bana chamisha aimlessing. There are 5 fears that larger creatures have of smaller creatures, or illogical creatures, illogical fears. Chamisha Amos chalash ala gibor, of a weak one on a strong one. Amos mavgia alari. There's the fear of some small animal that can screech that will scare a lion. Emas yitush al apil, a mosquito on an elephant. Emas samamis al akrev, a spider that can scare a scorpion. Emas sanunis al nesher, the fear of some other flying creature on an eagle or a vulture. Emas kilbis al leviasan, the fear of a small fish that gets into the leviasan. It says into the ears of the leviasan. Amar Rabbi Yehuda Marav me'ekra. From which verse do we see such a thing that there's a smaller creature that can frighten and scare a greater creature? It says Amavlik showed al oz that the strength to attack, or the strength to steal from, or to take loot from the mighty, from the strong. So you see that there's a small thing that can take and steal that which from the strong. Gemara now goes into agadata of questions that seem some of this about semantics and words. So the Gemara says, Rabbi Zera Ashkach Rabbi Yehuda Havakoya Pischa de Bechamur. Rabbi Zera was at his in-laws' home, and he was standing at the front of the house. And Rabbi Zera saw that Rabbi Yehuda was in a very good mood. And any question in the world that you would ask him, he would be happy to answer. Amar Leis, he said, "My time easy, maskin bereisha b'hadarim." He said, Rabbi Zera said to Rabbi Yehuda, "What's the reason that goats go ahead of the sheep? Why are they in the head?" It's like the creation of the world. The bereisha chashucha v'hadar nahara. First comes the darkness, and then came light. So too, the goats come first, and then the sheep. This is a metaphor for why is it that rabble rousers or people that have chutzpah seem to get ahead, while people who are mindful and thoughtful often are left behind. They said this is the way of the world. Hashem created the world in a state of development. It starts off with darkness, and the light comes in time. And so at first it looks like the audacious ones, the A's, meaning the goats, which are called A's, which is strength, audacity. They come first, and then come those that are being thoughtful and mindful and respectful. And he goes on. Why is it that sheep have tails that cover the part of their waist that comes out, whereas goats don't? So it says, these we get clothing from, so they provide us with cover, so they themselves have cover. Goats, we don't make clothing out of their hair, and so they don't get cover because they don't provide cover. And this again is a metaphor. Even though that these people jump ahead with their audacity and their self-righteousness and their self-worth, they don't provide any cover and any value. They don't provide any value to the people, to the masses. Whereas the Chachamim, those that are thoughtful and mindful, provide value to the masses, and therefore they themselves are also covered. My time, gamla zuter genuvte. Why is it that a camel has a short tail? Mashum the achli kisi, because it eats thorns, and since it eats the thorns, it has to be able to maneuver without its tail getting caught. My time, atura aricha genuvte. Why does a bull have a long tail? Mashum the dayer ba'agma, because it lives in a swamp. Obayla karkushi, baki, and it has to be able to swat away the flies and other flies and mosquitoes. My time makarna the kamta rachicha. Why is it that? So you kept on asking questions. He's getting good answers. So why is it that either grasshoppers or two versions here in Rashi, whether it's talking about grasshoppers he asked about or he asked about ants? Why is it that their antennae are soft? Mishum the diary bechilfi, because they grow, they live amongst dirt or rocks. V'i kashya nadye misavra, because if it was hard, it would break off and they'd be blinded because they can see through these antennae. Shmuel said, if somebody were to blind a kamsa, again, either an ant or a grasshopper, so then you'd break off its rip off its horns. It's essentially means the antenna. My timer, hi timur tan gulta midli le'ela. Why is it that the eyelids of chickens, the bottom eyelid goes up over the eye as opposed to the lower eyelid going down, the upper eyelid going down? The diary adafi, the ayel kitcher masavra, because they live, they go up on these on beams or on the fences at night in order to call in the morning, and the smoke could go up and blind them, so they need their lower eyelids to cover their eyes. Then he gets into a whole bunch of words, and the word, he's going to show that the word has a indication of its meaning as well. So dasha, which is the threshold, derech sham. It's sort of compound or shortened for derech sham. That's the way to go. That's the path is through there. Darga, which is a stair, derech gag. It's the way up to the roof. Matkulisa, a dip that you would dip your food in. So mate tichla. When will it mate tichla da? When would this end? In other words, it lasts long. Besa, a house. Bava eseba. It means it indicates its meaning, which is come and sit down in it. Bikta, gazebo or a hut. Be'aksa. It means it's a narrow place. Kufta, the mortar, which is the kufta is a larger basket which you can sit up. Is kuf vativ, turn it over and sit on. Livni, brick. Livnei bunny. It means that it'll last for my grandchildren, because anything you build with brick will last. Hutza, thorn fence. Chatzitza, it's only a barrier, but it actually doesn't last. Chatzva, a bucket. Shachotzev mayim, that you can gather water, you can draw water. Minanar, from the river. Kuza, which is a jug. Kazeh, it means this is what it is. This is the measure, and it's just a little bit, not a lot. Shutisa, hadassim were used a lot as myrtle for nice scent. We talked about this in brachos, that they would bring around hadassim for people to at nice meals, at weddings, at parties. Hadassim would be a part of the shtick of the adornments that they would bring about. People would smell them to enhance the scent in the room, as well as people would juggle them or throw them or toss them. So it was a part of the fun. So shutisa, it comes from the word of shtusa, of silliness. Meshichla, a large bucket, which people would use for like a basin for hand washing and washing hands and feet. So ma'ashikula, this is a full washing. Mashchilta, this is another bucket, but it's a fancier but smaller bucket. It's a mashikilta. That's where the bride, it's a bride washing station. Asita, this is the mortar, which is the receptacle that you would put spices in order to crush them. So chaserta, so that is the same language as it's missing. In other words, it's got the hole in it. Buchna, the pestle which you would use to crush the spices in it. Bo va'akena, so that's the language of buchna. Bo va'akena, come and I will hit it. Levusha, which is an outer garment. So lo busha, it doesn't allow for shame. In other words, it covers galima, which is the inner garment. Shanasa b'kegelim, it's just a piece of a cloth. It has no shape. Gulta, I think it's in nice spices. I don't remember what gulta is.
He said it's like a outer robe.
Yeah, takrachna. Yeah, that's right. Gulta is an outer robe. Gali vesiv, that you can show, and so it's a nice robe that you can show and sit with. In other words, that's a nice showy garment. Puria, a bed. Shaparim v'rabban alein. That's puria is the word is related to the word of being fruitful. So you're fruitful on it. Bor, a pit, a zinka that has been dried out. Bor zen naki means this pit zinka is zen naki. This is clean. It has no water in it. Sudra, which is the head kerchief, basically a head covering. Sod Hashem lireyav. Sudra is Sod Hashem lireyav. The secrets of Hashem are to those who fear Him. So when somebody wears a head covering, it's an indication of Yirah Shamayim, of awe and fear of Hashem. It's interesting that the word yarmulke also seems to have a meaning like that. Yarmulke would be Yarei Mikhail, one who fears Hashem. So Apadna, which is a palace. Apischadein. This is the opening. So Rabbi Zera asked Rabbi Yehuda a whole bunch of words, a whole bunch of things, and for each one he had a meaning or a connection to what it is. There are three things that as they get older, they get stronger. Most creatures, as they get older, they get weaker. There are three that get stronger. Be'elahim dag, a fish doesn't seem to get weaker towards the end of its life. It gets stronger. Menachash, and a snake. B'chazir, and a pig. And so with this, we are done for today. Tomorrow, after Shabbos at 9:45, anybody want to join? We're going to have we're going to do the next shir, which is regarding